Can you tell me how long these security measures that have been put in place today, the checkpoints, the sealing off of areas, how long they're going to remain in place for?
Lucy, we have been through crossing a red line from the Palestinian Authority by encouraging young children, 13-year-old boy, to take a knife and kill brutally a 13-year-old Israeli child. Now, I would like to put that in the frame before we put on the fact that Israel must defend itself, like every country in the world, by the way. In Paris, they did that. They did that in America, in Los Angeles, in Baltimore, in many cities in the world. Those are the measures that cities in the world that would like to protect themselves from violence. This is what most cities in the world are doing. But let's speak about the violence that children are committing now. We're speaking about the mentality of ISIS that is becoming part of the Palestinian Authority encouragement of young children to go and kill. This is something that Israel hasn't seen before.
But these measures that have been put in place today are surely not being seen as a long-term solution. This cannot go on. I mean, you talk of a red line. The red line for many Palestinians is they say you are restricting their access to one of their holiest sites, of the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Well, it's exactly the opposite. This is part of a big lie that is spread by the leadership of the Palestinians. Just like Abu Mazen said just a few weeks ago, I was in the UN when he said Jews are putting their filthy feet on Temple Mount. I just would like to mention this is the holiest place to the Jewish nation and the third holiest place to the Muslim nation. Throughout the regime of the Jewish nation, all religions may go to Temple Mount, but according to the ideology that the leadership of the Palestinians is spreading out now, only one religion can go up to Temple Mount, which is the Muslim. I would say this is racism, this is anti-Semitism. Those are things that every democratic country cannot suffer. And I must say that this is part of the fact I'm doing this interview in the BBC. You see, for many years, what we want to know, what we want to say to the world is, please interfere. The international community is interfering every time that there is a conflict, but they're not actually helping to change the infrastructure of the violence that is happening in the region. And the infrastructure is actually... Okay, I would like to say that...
We've also just spoken to Marwan Barghouti. He wants the international community to interfere as well, Mustafa Barghouti, because he says that you are the occupiers. It's up to you to uphold international law to end the occupation of East Jerusalem, so that these bigger questions also need to be answered.
Well, we are not occupiers in our own country. This is our land. The Jewish nation got back to their homeland. Those places, Jerusalem is the holy capital of the Jewish nation. No one denies that. Just the Palestinian leadership denies the historic roots of the Jewish people to the Jewish Temple Mount. We saw that with Yasser Arafat saying there was not a Temple Mount on the holiest place to the Jewish nation. So I would like to say whoever is trying to rewrite history won't manage to make the Jews to go out of their homeland. And I would like to say something about the peace process, because for the last few days, some leaders in the world are saying that this is a frustration. The reasons that the violence is coming out is out of the fact there is not a peace process. Well, let me remind you something. The fact there is not a peace process is because the Palestinians have decided to choose violence instead of sitting with us and to negotiate. Our Prime Minister is saying time after time he's willing to negotiate. We don't see any Palestinian leader that is actually saying, let's sit and negotiate. We're just seeing Palestinian leaders that are encouraging violence time after time.
In terms of the violence on the streets at the moment, though, you've got Israelis who are scared to go out on the streets. You've got young Palestinians saying that they're incredibly angry. They're not being told to do this by any political party. They feel let down. They've lost hope. This is the only method that they see of making their point. How do you even begin to solve this in the long term? Because surely these things that have been put in place today are only short-term measures.
Lucy, first of all, let's hear what said Mahmoud Abbas just a few weeks ago. He said, every drop of blood that is spilled on Jerusalem is a holy blood. This is leadership that is calling actually to commit crimes. You can't ignore that. You can't erase that, because those things are saying on record to the public and to the international community. Those things are being heard in the Palestinian street. So this is leadership that is actually encouraging the youngsters to go and commit those horrible crimes that are in our streets. So this is the first thing. So we have definitely the responsibility of the leaders The leaders in Israel are calling to coexistence, to peace talks. None of this is happening from the Palestinian street. This is the first thing. And the second thing, let's look back at history. The times where Israel has suffered more than any time in the past from terror were actually where Israel were having peace talks. At the 90s and at 2000, after the Camp David Accords, we saw thousands of Israelis are being killed under attack of suicide bombers. Those are things that we must remember. So the Palestinians are not frustrated from the fact there are not peace talks. They're frustrated from the fact there is a Jewish state in the Middle East. This is the issue. This is the story. This is why it's so important to put it in the right frame. And we need to fight violence. We need to fight the idea of children being abused and being used in order to kill. I would say what Hillary Clinton said a few years ago, they're being poisoned by their own Palestinian Authority.